Hey, hello everybody, welcome back to Women Who Code DFW channel. This is one of our episodes where we're just going to dive a little deeper into a member of Women Who Code DFW, get to know more about her. And her is Haley. She is right next to me, of course.
Hi.
If this wasn't Haley, that'd be kind of weird. So Haley, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the tech field? Kind of just take us briefly through that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess technology has always been something that's fascinated me. That's really from I didn't play with dolls growing up. I played with Legos.
Nice.
That even took me into, I actually did a robotics group with Girl Scouts, and our slogan was literally forget dolls, we play with robots.
That is so cool.
So it was a lot of fun, but I always, if I didn't understand how something was working, it drove me almost like crazy, and I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I was always interested in learning those things. I went to school for engineering.
Okay.
And I found that really interesting. But what interested me more is when I got almost like immediate feedback. So I kind of started playing with coding. I tried my hand at like a little bit of web development, but most of the programming knowledge I have has been self-learned.
Awesome.
From online resources and such. I got a job that was very entry level, that I worked on a production support team, and I learned a ton. And that kind of just got me into wanting to learn more, wanting to figure out what I liked.
Yeah.
And between that and finding the startup world fascinating, those two kind of like merged, and that's where I found myself now.
That's really cool. So one thing that's really cool is, like you mentioned, a lot of self-taught, being, going through that process. How did you kind of navigate that?
It was really hard. No, I mean, I could have gone to school for something like that, but honestly, going to school for something like that was really intimidating. There were a whole lot of achievements and marks that you had to figure out. This was more of an explorative process, per se. So I would find tutorials or something that related to my real life, and I would kind of play with that, and then as more resources were developed, I would try to kind of like create something that is relatable to my life. So like one of the Hacktober just happened.
Yes.
And
Hacktober
one of the one of the things that the Dallas Women Who Code group did was actually part of like one of the ideas that I had to take forward. So it's really cool to see those kinds of things, and like promoting women and underrepresented groups in general in tech spaces, and kind of taking that and just fueling my passion through that, and trying to make it a space to learn more about those things, because it's hard. It's really, really hard.
It's tough stuff.
That and finding a group of people that kind of do the same thing. So learning by yourself, even online when you have so I've tried groups where you have like a Slack community. And that's really great because you can ask questions, but to me it's still a forum.
True.
So I tend to get frustrated really easily, or I'm like, okay, and then I think I know what I'm doing, and I go down this tunnel. And being new at that, I have no idea what I'm doing.
So you just keep diving deeper.
Exactly, and I get lost, and I spend so much time. But honestly, finding a group like Women Who Code has helped me see what I can achieve in the future, and see people being successful in the field, and their passion and excitement in it, and just being able to ask questions really helped fuel me to continue in the field. Like, I was training for a while to teach people how to code. And I kind of lost my passion for it. Because I didn't see people using things to their full potential. So by actually being able to participate in Women Who Code, it re-inspired me, and it led me to my current job, which I work at a startup right now. And I am literally helping rebuild and create new technology.
Yeah.
I have learned like a ton of new things. I've learned Docker, I've learned Kubernetes, and now I'm actually in charge of those pieces for the
awesome.
entire team.
Wow.
So I'm getting to be able to lead and be able to like participate in that.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't had this group, I literally wouldn't be there today.
That is so. I love it. I love it. I love it. You mentioned a lot of things there.
I know. I go on a tangent sometimes.
That's great. That's great. So I know we started out with the self-teaching, and you kind of had that path where you kind of getting lost in everything. You tried out some groups, right? Mm-hmm. Is there like a point in time, you probably mentioned it, where you're just like, all right, I'm done with this? Did you need more in-person things? Is that what kind of fueled this whole journey of yours? Or?
I did. It was a combination of not really knowing where to go, especially being self-taught or being entry level. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of postings for people that are 5-10 years experience and stuff.
Hate it.
Right, and I totally get it. They want more experience, but it's really hard to get that first step.
So tough.
It's hard to find jobs, it's hard to find companies to do that. It's hard to know what you need on your resume or just as a personal feeling comfortable enough to apply. Mm-hmm. I've read so many articles that say like women apply only when they meet all of the criteria. Yes. And a lot of other people just apply to apply, right?
All of them.
So I honestly started applying to a bunch of stuff, but you know, like, it's really hard. It's
hard. So about how long did that process take you from like, I'm gonna start teaching myself these things to I finally have a position where this is a development role and I'm working as a developer? About how long do you think that took you?
Yeah, so I graduated with my engineering degree, and I kind of knew I wanted to be in the tech fields. I wasn't 100% if I wanted to be a developer, which direction I wanted to take, but I knew in that general sphere of knowledge, right? And I would say that while working and trying to learn at the same time, it took me a solid at least 2 years to decide kind of a direction, along with taking courses online. But I mean, once I decided to actually pursue a new job in being just a developer, it took me probably 6 months to a year to really find a position. So it takes a while. Yeah. And it's hard to keep up that courage to continuously apply. Yeah. But not giving up really led to a great opportunity. And it's funny, like, I can't tell you how many places I applied. I applied on every online thing you can imagine. And our group is actually the reason I got a job.
That's awesome. So was it a person that you met? Was it online? Women Who Code job board? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, so I met a lot of people and I connected with a lot of people, but somebody had posted in the career Slack channel. Okay. And they just posted, and I thought that I fit kind of the criteria, and I said, you know what, I like this company, I like what they stand for, I'm gonna go for it. Yeah. Part of what I had realized along my journey is, you'll hear me say this phrase, but finding my why. So not just from a tech perspective, but really finding a company that aligns with what you're passionate about. So like for me and Noiseaware, not only being a developer and being able to contribute and being valued, but really being in a space where I can impact people on a daily basis. Yeah. So what we're actually doing with that is being able to change people's lives and decrease the number of hazardous events people can encounter. It's pretty phenomenal.
Wow. That's a great impact.
Yeah.
That's really awesome when you find something and you're really making an impact on something and you're also doing something that you enjoy doing. That's an amazing thing.
It really is. It's good for the people that are, so it's in the short-term rental industry. Okay. And what we are is, the whole slogan is, we're smoke detectors for noise. The whole concept behind it is one of our the co-founders had actually rented their property out for an evening somebody threw, they coined it a mini Coachella, and they got fined $30,000 by the city. So the city wasn't happy.
Yeah.
He obviously wasn't very happy.
Yeah.
And then the apartment was destroyed. Wow. So the whole concept is to kind of bring knowledge and awareness around it, but also preventing things like really bad accidents from happening and not knowing about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't preface this with you before, but I'm going to ask you. So now that you're, because I just thought about it. So
it's okay.
now that
I'm
you're,
down for it.
Yeah, I love it. You're just like, let's go with it. So now that you've had, you're in this position. What's your title? Did you mention?
I am just a developer,
Okay,
but I pretty much bounce around front end, back end.
Nice.
Whatever's needed.
Yeah. So wherever the need
It's awesome.
is. So with that, what are some initial challenges that you had? Maybe one or two that you were like, oh crap, and then you had to kind of work through that.
Sure. I think the first one that I'll mention is everybody kind of has that, the imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, especially being self-taught, it's awesome. I finally got this job. I know what I'm doing. Do I know what I'm doing?
Nobody knows.
Nobody does. But I think what really helped me is the transparency of our product team and having the courage to ask questions that I might have thought, oh, I should have known that, or I should have known the answer. I didn't need to ask that question, but everybody having this open environment and allowing me to ask those questions really helped me get past at least some of my imposter syndrome.
That's good.
And something that I challenge myself every day. One of my favorite phrases is literally brave, not perfect. It's something I struggle with all the time because coming from a background of where perfectionism was valued very highly, coding was a challenge.
Yeah.
Being able to make mistakes and break things
all the time.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And then also, I think at the very beginning, I came into a company that was moving very quickly. So they were growing very, very quickly. I think in the last 6 months, they doubled their size, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Insane.
Yeah. So we went through a lot of changes, especially on the product team side, and we actually decided to shift and learn a new language.
Okay.
So within about 3 weeks of joining, I went from being very comfortable knowing Java to, hey, we're going to do microservices with Golang. I'd never heard of the language before.
Yeah, that's like a really...
So it was quite an experience, but not giving up. I have even more confidence in myself.
I love it.
So we are all kind of figuring it out, but it's been a great ride.
That's good though. And then I feel like that's a lot of the tech space as well, is like you're gonna have things that you just don't know, or things that you're gonna have to learn, figure out on the job, and everyone's just kind of going through and trying to figure it out.
See, I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting it so soon.
You're like, oh yes, boom. What did you say? 3 months? Boom. There you go. do this stuff.
Yeah, but
I feel like maybe that's like a thing. I had something similar at my job.
Really?
And it was like maybe 3 months after I joined, and it's like, here's a big project for you, and I'm like, oh, okay.
But like being able to switch languages and showing that I'm capable of doing that allowed me to be able to take over learning and owning like Docker and Kubernetes in order to improve all of our existing services, and being able to offer those new solutions, learn them, and then just make things better, which is really cool that we even have the opportunity to do that.
That's really cool. So as far as the team is concerned, can you give us like a general breakdown? Is there a specific amount of engineers on the team? Are they split up between front end and back end? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So the company as a whole is pretty small still. I think we have about 23 employees.
Oh, cool.
So very, very small.
Everyone knows everybody. There we go.
Yeah. We don't fit in the conference room anymore.
That's a good sign.
We have about 8 or 9 people on the product team.
Okay.
We have like one person that is really designated to front ends, and then we have 1 or 2 people that are really designated as back ends.
Okay.
Since we're in the IoT space, we also have people that are very good at firmware and being able to like actually build everything associated with the hardware. And if anything's needed, the way we're structured is we have 2-week sprints. So we're kind of moving into this, whatever is needed for the sprint. If we have knowledge in that space, or if other people need help, we can kind of shift a little bit. So I have a little bit of experience with front end, a little bit more with back end. But for instance, in this next sprint, one of the new features that we'll be offering soon, I'm moving into the front end because I have built some of the back end for it because we only have one designated person for that. So it's kind of cool that we get to shift around a little bit.
Yeah. You kind of get an idea of how everything works too. You know, you have a better perspective, and that helps with business perspective as well, because when you get these things, you have to know kind of like what they're being used for, general idea, if anything else. So it's really good.
That is one of the hardest things. Is I feel like when you think about coding, when you're starting, you're like, all right, so there's this super defined thing. I'm just building this small little module, this small little action. But understanding how it works with everything else is almost just as important, if not more important, than the actual coding.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I struggle with a lot, because I'll get new things and I'm like, well, what's it being used for? And how are they using it before? And was this just something new that they wanted? Or
I feel like I ask a million questions. I probably annoy them a little, but
Never.
I'd rather have the answers to those questions and be able to design for people rather than just make this thing that we think is useful. That's one of the coolest things, is because we're such a small group and because we have such an interactive customer base, they actually do a bunch of product interviews and we get direct feedback. And so we can do this kind of test thing and really design for people rather than, I don't know, as somebody from a technical perspective, I'm always like, this is the best thing that we need. And I'm like, wait, no, is it really though?
Yeah, because we don't really know. We're just building the stuff, right?
I'm like, it'd be really cool.
Yeah. We want to do this and this and flip over and all these other things. We want all the things. So it's really neat. So with where you are with your company now, how do you see your future being? Like, what does the future of Haley look like?
That is such a hard question. Well, I can start out saying within the next year or two, I do think that we're really on a track for growth. That's one of the reasons that I joined Noiseaware. We're not only a great product, but we're also 100% privacy safe. So being in a perfect position in the market for that, we're definitely going to be growing and expanding. So I can definitely see myself not only being able to contribute with learning these new technologies and helping out, but maybe potentially being a lead or maybe even managing some other new people and helping onboard them as well.
I definitely see the lead part in you. When you were talking about, I think you were mentioning like all these new things you had to learn and kind of like maybe regurgitating that to other people and stuff. And I'm
it's
like,
fun.
You're doing it.
Well, we had the other day we had a lunch and learn, and it was cool to actually bring people in from, we call it the other side because the office is really just 2 rooms. So we bring in our marketing and we bring in our sales team and everybody, and we taught them very intro topics to Docker and Kubernetes on a very, very high like children's book level with pictures of whales and giraffes. And
so awesome. I love it.
But I guess in 5-10 years, I really do hopefully see myself starting a company. I'm really interested in women and underrepresented groups in tech. So any way I can align myself with that is somewhere I see myself in the entrepreneurship space.
Awesome. This was amazing.
There's a 2-part question.
Yes. Hey, I get it. There's a lot of goals to accomplish here. I feel like everyone always says, okay, you've been a developer what's that next thing look like? And I feel a lot of people are just like, management. And some people don't want to manage other people.
You don't have to, though.
And exactly.
Like, what's great about being in the tech space is you can actually just either become an expert in one thing or learn new languages or learn all the new technologies. I mean, even from the phrase being a full stack developer, nobody can know every technology to the depth of everything about that one language. It's impossible, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
And we can always continue to learn. So you never have to do management. That's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for a new perspective. Now we know. What do you do afterwards? Come to the video.
You don't have to do management.
Don't manage people. Don't tell the people that. So any last words you can give, advice to people, other self-taught individuals? Anything that you learned that maybe you could speak to that might make it a little bit easier for somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely not giving up. I know that's easier said than done, but for me, I go through this cyclical thing where I'll spend a lot of time on a topic or trying to learn something new, and then it'll drop off, and I almost feel like a failure from that. But honestly, just having an interest in that topic and not giving up on tech, as well as joining groups. So I know I mentioned it already, and how important Women Who Code is to me personally, not just because I got a job through the connections, but honestly from the friends that I've made, from the value that I've gotten from being able to see other people being successful, other people like me.
Yeah.
That's something I never saw. I mean, my previous teams were all male. My current team is almost all male. So being able to see other people like me is pretty phenomenal. And if you feel alone or anything, definitely reach out. Our group's fantastic. Or if you're in another location, anything. I mean, it goes, even just occasionally going, it does a lot. Yeah, that's a very true thing. When I first started out, I went occasionally. I'm like, okay, let's see how this is. I'm like, okay, been to a couple of these, and maybe I'll go back to another one. And yeah, you're right, it's that sense of like belonging, you know? It's like, hey, people that look like me too, that's cool. Because you don't see that at work a lot of times, you know? Especially in the tech space. Exactly. So it's a really unique thing, and I think the Dallas-Fort Worth group is pretty phenomenally different. So no, stop. No, but really, I mean, we're okay. But going to the groups really makes me feel welcome and have that sense of belonging. And that's something I searched for ever since I graduated college. I mean, even in college, it was hard sometimes. Yeah. Graduating with an engineering degree, there are a lot of guys. For sure. So even being able to see like those different perspectives from people having lived all over the world or even all over the U.S. is pretty amazing. It's major. So. It's major. Well, I thank you so much for spending some time with the people and letting them know. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. Absolutely. Thank you all for watching our channel. If you liked what you saw, please continue. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. Thank you all. Definitely follow her. She's awesome. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in another video. Take care.